This is Cooper with FedRetirementPlanning.com, and today I'm going to talk about the ups and also, unfortunately, the downs of the Thrift Savings Plan returns. Now, when we talk about the ups and downs of the Thrift Savings Plan, or just the market in general, what we're referring to is a word called volatility. Now, volatility, the way I like to describe it, is that of a wave, okay? Something that isn't volatile would be something that's just a straight line, whereas volatility is something that's in this up, down, up, down, up, down pattern, okay? Now, over the past year, the market, has been pretty flat, but there's been a lot of volatility, short-term volatility at least, within the early part of this year, 2016, and then in 2015, it was a little bit flat. And so what I did was I went to fedsmith.com. They have something called a TSP data center. And I think this is one of the only places that has this, at least that I've seen, that you can find historical data for each year for each fund on how the returns came about and things like that. I'll put a link in the bio below so that you can check it out. But I've got it pulled up on my computer here. And I'm looking at the returns for 2015, and what I'm finding is the G fund outperformed every other fund. The G fund came out in 2015 with a 2.04% market return, which compared to the rest, that's still a very low return. But that being said, compared to that of the I fund, for example, which lost 2.92%, that's really not that bad. Actually, let me rephrase that. The I fund actually only lost 0.51%, but the S fund, which is the small cap fund, that lost 2.92%, and then the I fund was the international fund. So that's how the market works. And if you have a short-term view of things, you're gonna be cloudy when you look at things like that, and you're gonna say, well, why shouldn't I just put my money in the G fund? Because the G fund did better last year. But if you solely base your investment on the past year, you're really going to be missing a lot of things, such as a long-term time horizon. A lot of that comes back to determining your risk tolerance and your time horizon. I have a video, I'll put a link in the bio below, along with an article that I wrote on choosing a TSP investment strategy. Now, the reason I think it's so important to develop a strategy and to lay that foundation is so that when there is volatility, short-term or long-term volatility, you're not scared when all of a sudden the market's going down. You're not looking at 1 year's worth of returns and saying, oh my gosh, the G fund outperformed, the CS and I, why am I not in the G fund? Because if you take more of a macro view and you look at, okay, let's look at the past 10 years and you look at how well they did, you start to see that, the returns for a longer time period actually did, quite a bit better than just this short past year. For instance, if you go to tsp.gov basically investment funds, fund performance, I'll put a link in the bio below as well for you to take a look at it. But they calculate the 10-year average, okay? So if we're looking at just the short term and we're just focusing on that volatility and not the large picture, then we obviously can be skewed, because when we look at the 10-year average for the G fund is 3.19%, okay? Now that's higher than what it did in the past year, and a lot of that has to do with how it did in 2005, 2006 and 2007, when actually the G fund was around 4.8%, 4.5%, which for something that you can't lose any money in the G fund, that's a pretty good return. However, that's not how it currently is. But then if we go over and look at the CS and I, the C had a 10-year average of 7.72%. The S fund had an average of 9.44%, and the I fund was around 4.58%. Now, a lot of the reason that these aren't as high as they could be is because what happened in 2008. The big market correction that I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, remember. 2008, the C fund lost 36.99%, the S fund lost 38.32%, and then the I fund lost 42.43%. In the same instance, if you were to look at that and say, well, I should never invest in these because they lose money, and you were only basing it on that 1 year, obviously, over a long time horizon, you would be essentially making an error there, because the next year, in 2009, the C fund gained 26.68%. Okay, so basically this goes back to the market is volatile. If you can't handle the volatility, if you don't like the ups and downs, if you have a very short time horizon, then you should look at some of the safer funds such as the G fund and F fund and try and decide if that more, I guess, reflects your personal view of investing. Now, if you're somebody who has a lot of time on their hands, as far as from now until you retire, you don't really worry a whole lot about how the market's currently doing. It's not something that keeps you up at night. Then I would look into the CS&I, or maybe a combination of all 5 in the L funds, to help you decide what's going to be the best over your long time horizon. That being said, based on the past 10 years, we can see that the CS&I have all outperformed the G fund. The I fund actually did worse than the F fund, which is a bond fund, but the C and S did better than all of them, and the S topped out at the top. That's on the past 10 years. Over a longer time horizon, I'm sure others would come about being better. But basically, the point of this video is to get across to you not to be so worried about the short-term fluctuations in the market. The reason that people get worried and start watching the market every day is, one, because either they're day traders, and you can't really day trade your TSP account, or two, they're putting too much emphasis on their short term where they should be looking at the longer term. And if you have a short term to retirement and you can't take the ups and downs of the CS&I, then maybe you should think about looking into the other safer funds, like I said. But this has been Cooper with FedRetirementPlanning.com. Like, comment, share, and especially subscribe. Okay, I'm getting more and more subscribers, but the more subscribers I get, that's the more people we can reach and educate and help. So I appreciate you guys watching, and see you next time. Thanks.